There's two types of customer insight, right? One insight is where you have the data and you pull the insight out of the data, which is the
Yeah.
insight that you mentioned. The second type of customer insight is where you notice a problem. My first question is, can you just tell me about yourself?
Yeah, more than happy to. So I started off my career actually in the retail space, doing merchandising, product line management, buying, depending on the company, where I was able to analyze performance metrics and then use that to essentially come up with upcoming product assortments for the season. And I had been doing that for some time, fell into product marketing when I was working at Reebok, and I was really able to hone in on the skills I've developed through merchandising, buying, of analyzing performance metrics and using that to come up with creative strategies, which I absolutely love being able to use like the right and left side of my brain of being able to analyze things, but also use the creative side of things as well, and wanted to transition more into the tech space. And that's what led to more recent roles at Etsy, where I was doing more B2B SaaS, working on the seller facing side, and then also led to my role at Whoop, where I was doing more direct consumer SaaS for them. And now I'm really just looking for an opportunity where I can learn and grow.
The answer is very compact, concise. There's a clear linear journey from your experience in merchandising, how that helped you translate your experiences to product marketing. Right brain, left brain made a complete sense. The only two things I think that could make it even better. One, quantify your experience. Say, hey, I spent X amount of years in merchandising, transition to product marketing, been doing product marketing for X amount of years.
Okay.
This way I know, okay, she's pretty experienced. And then the second small piece of feedback is if you can just expound a little more, because in the beginning, I'm like, oh, analytics, performance, she seems very analytical. Once you talked about your right brain stuff, the creative aspect, I think if you can mesh that into what is your superpower? Is it telling stories using data or making data more understandable? I think
Okay.
that's where you can really highlight your unique superpower. But other
Okay.
than that, great answer.
Awesome. Thank you for the feedback.
Second question is, can you tell me about a time when you launched a successful product?
Yeah, more than happy to. I'll just give an example of one of the ones that I have. And so I'll give you of a most recent product launch I worked on at Whoop, and not sure, let me know if you need more context of what Whoop is, because I can definitely give you more information on what Whoop is as a product. Do you need me to give you more insight into what Whoop is as a
Yeah,
product before I go
quick
into this?
quick TLDR on what Whoop is, and then go
Okay.
into your product launch.
Yeah, so Whoop is a band that you essentially wear on your wrist. It doesn't have a face or anything, but it has like sensors that connect to an app on your phone that track your sleep, your strain, and your recovery. And you can essentially put in different activities and track different things within your day-to-day life to then understand how it impacts your sleep, your strain, and recovery, and how much strain you should put on your body the following day, essentially. So that's what Whoop is, just to give you a little bit more context. And so one of the products I had launched at Whoop was actually called Live Activities. And I'm not sure if you've used like apps like Uber or anything, you will see on the dynamic island essentially something that will pop up to tell you like how far your Uber is from your current place or destination. And so similarly, we got a lot of feedback from members that they were looking for a similar live activities like widget or something on their home screen or dynamic island that would essentially give them more context when it came to like their activity that they were performing. So within the Whoop app, the only way that you could originally see like your heart rate zone, like your distance and your pace were within the Whoop app. And you'd have to actually log into the Whoop app to see all of that as you're working out, which to a consumer, that's not the most convenient thing, especially depending on the activity that you're doing, running or cycling. You want to know the heart rate zone and how far you are. So it had come to our knowledge that essentially there was a lot of feedback that members had been wanting to see this information front and center for them, just so they could better analyze and incorporate these statistics into their workout experience. So worked very closely with my consumer insights partners, marketing partners, product partners, finance to essentially come up with the positioning of the product, and also looked at competitors in the marketplace as well to see how we can better position this product, and also came up with the target audience and looked at any previous product launches that we had that were slightly similar to gain any sort of insights on how we can best market this product. Worked with the whole entire team with coming up with all those various things, but then also came up with the marketing strategy when it came to this as well, and launched the product when it came to our sellers. And we saw in general a 31% increase in engagement, a 21% increase in feature usage. And we'd had so much great positive member feedback when it came to this launch, and was figuring out different ways to integrate that into other product launches that we had upcoming as well.
What was the messaging that you use, and what are the most successful channels?
Yeah. So the primary messaging that we had used for this product launch was really focusing on like the benefits of the product, like really leaning into heart rate zones, because this was something that was a lot of feedback we were getting from members that they were really engaged with. And it helped again, like with our target audience, because we were targeting mostly like cyclists and runners when it came to this upcoming launch, because they monitor heart rate zones when it comes to their training purposes. So that was the reason we focused more on like heart rate zones, and then using that when it came to this product launch. And then when it came to different channels, the most successful channel we was in product. So we had like essentially a notification card that went in product. That was the most successful, but we did see overall positive impacts from all channels that we had done via like push notifications, lifecycle marketing, and also social, that all like contributed to this increase in feature usage as well.
I think there's three components to this. First of all, I think there's the what is the product? How did you launch the product? And then finally the results, right? So I think you did a really good job at the one, the what of the product is and the results. And thus the how was quickly skipped over into the
Okay.
results. If you can think about using an analogy for the what, so you could be like, hey, I worked on Whoop. It's similar to Fitbit. It tracks your exercise activity. Boom, you're done with that. Then you jump into the how, which is okay, target audience, cyclists, runners, like you mentioned. And then you can be like, oh, biggest thing that interests them is the heart rate. And we really
Yeah.
focused our messaging around the heart rate. And we focus on existing customers and we use push notification and whatnot. And then these are the
Okay.
results. So I think if you just structure it so that you focus more on the how, less on the what, I think you'll be in good shape.
Okay. No, that's really good feedback to have. Thank you.
Next question is, tell me about a time when you uncovered a key customer insight. If you have an experience that's related to customer research, that would be great if you can share.
Okay.
Yep.
For this, I'll actually go back to Etsy. And so one of the products I was working on there was our toffers, which is essentially a seller has the ability to send a thank you coupon, a thank you offer, or when the buyer favorites an item or abandons the cart, the seller has an opportunity to send them a promotional code. So was working on that specific product and discovered through different marketing like challenges and strategies that we've offered, like we would get essentially direct messages back from our messages, like from our sellers. So essentially, when one of the marketing tactics that we have at Etsy was sending like direct messages via like the website, and so through a messenger app, and we would get direct messages back from sellers. And through those direct messages and also different research surveys that we had sent out to our sellers, we uncovered the reason that sellers were a little bit hesitant to using these thank you coupons were because essentially they didn't know essentially all the different type of offers that we had. So they didn't realize we had so many different offerings when it came to sellers that could offer their buyers, like the different types of coupons, but also they didn't really have the education on how to, again, position their products so they were achieving a certain gross margin so they would get enough money for their goods when offering these different type of promotional codes. So that was like one key discovery that I had learned through various different channels at Etsy.
From this experience, was this a problem that you accidentally uncovered, or did you know that, did you see that, hey, people aren't really using this thank you feature, and then you push these marketing messages out to get feedback?
It was more something like accidentally uncovered. It wasn't something like we still got like sellers using these coupons. It was just something that we had uncovered through different marketing tactics.
Okay. So how did you act on this feedback? Yeah.
Yeah. So based off of this feedback, I had worked with different channel partners to come up with a strategy to better educate sellers on these different type of promotional codes that we had to offer. So giving them more of a description of what each type of promotional code we had and how to again come up with our strategy so they would achieve like a certain gross margin target when it came to targeting and using these promotional codes. So giving them more education on one, all the different types of promotions, and two, how they can better position their retail price when it came to using these coupons. And so came up with the messaging. That was the primary messaging, is like focusing on the different types of offers we had, but then also how to best achieve the best profit margin to the sellers. And did that through various different social like posts, and did that through again like the messaging system that we had within Etsy and lifecycle marketing. And then overall through this we ended up seeing a 16% increase in adoption and 12K in GMS impact when it came to just this one marketing tactic that we had done to educate sellers based off of like different promotional codes that we had.
Hmm, got it. Yeah, good answer. The context was really clear. The problem was identified, like you mentioned, through the feedback system. Good job there. Small feedback to make it even better. There's two types of customer insight, right? One insight is where you have the data and you pull the insight out of the data, which is the
Yeah,
insight that you mentioned. The second type of customer insight is where you notice a problem. Maybe, I don't know, sales is down. You're like, okay, let me go find the insight. So if
yeah.
you can make it a little more clear, hey, is this type of insight? I think that would
Okay,
be better.
good to know.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Can you tell me about a time when you had to work with challenging stakeholders?
Happy to. So I'd say one time when I was actually working at Reebok, I wouldn't say it was more so challenging, it's just a difficult start, was when I was working on I was working on our graphic tees department, and essentially this department was originally handed over to me and it was just running as is. So similar, same messaging, positioning as it had been season over season. And I had taken it on, and there was communicated to me that there was a lot of opportunities for this category. So I had gone through past seasons, seen like what things had worked really well when it came to this category, and brought that to my stakeholders when it came to any upcoming product launches that we had. And they were getting a lot of pushback from upper management of wanting to have things iterate with the global strategy and have men's and women's be the same. And they were getting pushback from me, which was the complete opposite of that. So I wouldn't say it was a challenging stakeholders. It was just a challenging situation where they were getting conflicting information from two different parties. And essentially, I was able to just build a lot of rapport with my stakeholders when they were getting this information from upper management, but also getting it from me, provide like different examples from different trends in the marketplace, but the competitors and also analytics of past seasons, things that have worked out that supported the point I was making, and also wholesale partners as well, because we were getting a lot of information from our sales partners that supported what I was saying as well. So shared with them all that information. And that was a pretty challenging time, but essentially we ended up agreeing on like doing a small test when it came to seeing how essentially positioning the graphics as more feminine instead of just carryover masculine skews. So positioning it as being more feminine to our consumer and specifically our wholesale accounts, how that would perform, and did a small test, did it. It worked out really well, remained very flexible through this whole entire test because I knew that the team was getting different pushbacks from upper management as well. But then after we did the test, we saw a huge increase in our sales, and we actually ended up growing the category by 50% by eventually transitioning it all to be more aligned with what we had done in the initial test and how it had performed, with it being more feminine facing messaging versus just carryover masculine messaging when it came to our graphic tees.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that. Point of clarification, is the main issue about whether or not you want your marketing or your product to be different? Yeah.
Both. They both align together, essentially. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not just like one thing. They like coincide, both
Okay.
the product, but also the messaging behind it.
And the issue was that middle management was stuck, and then you eventually did an A/B test that proved
Yeah.
your case, and then you rolled out the changes. Thank you for that. The only comment is I did remember you said upper
Yeah.
management wanted this. I think you waited until a while later until you mentioned what was the issue, because you mentioned my point of view. So if you could just showcase your point of view earlier, I think that would set a better tone for the rest of the answer.
Okay.